Good morning and welcome to the Vaulting Voices podcast. I am Justin Akers and I'm joined with my wonderful co-host, Angel Storm. Good morning, Angel.
Good morning, Justin. How are you doing?
Well, I was really good this morning. It's a beautiful day. It's sunshiny. It's a little bit cooler.
Yeah.
But then I was sitting in the office this morning doing some stuff, and I was like, today's going to be a day of no technical difficulties because every time we do a podcast, we have some issue. And then, of course, we've spent the last 13 minutes
At
uh,
least.
trying to work out technical difficulties. So it just seems to go with this. And it's not
That's
just our
right.
podcast because I do a podcast with my brother Marcus, and he and I. Uh, Last week, our technical issue was actually just user error, but either way, it's still an issue. So we got it all figured out, and I'm glad to be able to do this again with you.
Same, yes. We're delayed a week this time, and it just wouldn't be our podcast without the issues, you know?
It would not. Well, I meant to ask you before we started. You have a very significant, very important event coming up or opportunity, and I didn't even ask you if you wanted to share that or not.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I would love to share it actually. Yeah, so about a month ago I signed a book deal to write a chapter in an upcoming book released by Chris Voss, who is just such an amazing insightful wealth of knowledge on how to negotiate with all types of people. He was the lead hostage negotiator for the FBI for 25 years. So he negotiated for kidnappings and so forth all over the world with all types of drug cartels or, terrorist organizations and so forth. And since he's retired from that, he has his own business where he helps businesses negotiate and learn negotiation skills and so forth. And so I've been following him since 2016 when I was still working for the government. And so to be asked to write in his book is just such a huge honor for me and a really exciting opportunity all around.
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity, and for those that are in New York City here in a couple weeks, you'll see
Yep.
Angel's billboard, her face on a billboard very, very soon, which I think is
Billboard in Times
completely
Square.
awesome.
Isn't that wild? What a life, really. What a great start to the year, to be honest, because I signed this deal, 2 months into the year. And after that, I hired an amazing publicist who knows all the people. And yeah, so I'll have a billboard in April. I'll have another billboard in September. And just crazy opportunities have been opening ever since signing this contract. So I'm super, 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 super excited.
Not to be silly, but that makes me want to go to New York, and me and Shauna stand there pointing at the billboard saying, "Hey, we know her."
100%. I mean, yeah, I'm flying out there for sure. I'm like, I need a selfie with myself on the billboard, of course. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm going out there for 24 hours or so just to be able to see it in person.
Well, let me just say, I've told you this, in conversation, but let me say this publicly. Congratulations! I am so proud of you and so proud for you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And it's just one of those things where, for me at least, I just want to be really good at my craft. I want to do what I do with excellence. And so to be able to, be picked out of thousands of people, they're picking 25 people to write in this book, and to be able to beat out thousands of people,
Hmm.
to add value. I mean, it's such an honor, and I'm really excited to be able to share the chapter with everybody. I've been working with my ghostwriter on it, and I'm really happy with how it's coming together.
Well, again, I'm proud of you, proud for you, and I know it's going to be something because this is going to expand the audience. You have
Right.
a very powerful message, and this is going to expand that audience of who gets to hear that message, and I think that's incredible. So,
Yeah. Thank you so much.
And let me spin off on something here. You just said something that you and I both have talked about a few times, but doing something with excellence. We can both go down so many different examples just in daily life, but just why don't you expand on the importance in our spiritual walks and our spiritual lives and our public lives, the importance of excellence in what we do?
Yeah, absolutely. So personally, I'm just so drawn to it. It's like I can just pick it out, truly. I can just pick it out from in the middle of nowhere or out of a crowd of billions, where there's excellence. And one of my favorite passages is talking about Daniel, and it says that there was a spirit of excellence upon him.
Hmm.
And it was so strong that not only could unbelievers see it, but the king could see it, right? And they just knew something was different about this man. And I think it's so important to do things with excellence, because in heaven there's no shortcuts, there's no cut corners.
Hmm.
It's done to perfection every time. And I think that that should be the only standard that we do things with. But when it becomes a pillar of your life, of like, this is, I'm only going to do it to the best of my ability, and to continue to expand what my ability, you know measurement is, you're drawing in a certain type of caliber of person, and
Hmm.
it's so rare. I would say it's such a rarity these days, that it draws the attention of people that you don't even know are watching, because it's like a bright light in a dark room, and everybody is drawn to it, and everybody wants to see, like, what is different about this person. And it can be like you're doing the same thing as the person next to you, you know what I
Hmm.
mean, but just doing it in a different spirit. And I think it is really important to do it that way. And I believe that that's what scripture is talking about when it says to do all things as unto the Lord, that you're doing it like God gave you that ability or talent.
I think this is so important in the church, and I know that you were talking about your lash tech, not something that I have an issue with, but she does something. She has a very specialized skill there that she does with excellence, and
Absolutely.
I think we need to do the same thing in church. Well, first off, let me back up. We need to do the same thing in our personal spiritual walk.
Yeah.
Everything in our spiritual walk needs to be done with a spirit of excellence.
Mhm.
And I don't mean this trying to compete with someone else. I mean understanding that everything I do needs to be done to the best of my ability. It doesn't mean that I'm better than anybody else or trying to be better than anyone else. It means I'm trying to be the best of me. And when we approach God that way, it's not a religious conformity approach. It is simply saying, God, I want to give you the best of me. In a marriage, Sean and I have been married for 25 years, and every day after 25 years, actually 24 and a half, she'll get me on that, but after nearly 25 years, I still try to strive to give her my best, and vice versa, and that's doing something with excellence. And our approach to God needs to be that way. Our approach to church needs to be that way. Matter of fact, as a pastor, not just on technical things. I do think that technical things are very important. Do your camera right, do your audio right, all of that. It is important, but that's not what I mean. I mean doing the heart right. I mean having the heart of excellence, and so that means having integrity in your ministry. Being careful what you preach, that you preach from the place of the right heart, but you also preach from a place of accuracy. Not to say we don't make mistakes, because I can go back through years of videos and pinpoint things that are that were not right. Small mistakes, and I've given wrong verses, or I've gone back and studied things, and interpret them a little bit differently than what I have previously. But it's that striving that we do. And this is why you have the opportunity you have with this book, is because you've done everything with your businesses, with your the way you conduct your life. You do so with excellence. We strive to do that here at the church, and the byproduct is evident. People see that somebody cares. I think that's the biggest thing, is to know that somebody actually cares about what they're doing. And
Yeah.
when you go somewhere and somebody does not have a spirit of excellence, they're not trying to do anything excellent, then they don't care about being here. And you go to some places and it's almost like they're waiting on you to do their job, and it
Yeah.
just, you can feel almost the disdain for being there. So when we come to church as a minister or as a congregant, we should come in with that spirit of excellence, that we know we want to be here, and we welcome the Holy Spirit. I mean, think about this. If you had a guest come into your house, let's say a dignitary of some sort. I don't want to say the president, because most people may not be too excited, but a dignitary of some sort, man, you're going to have your house immaculate in every way. You're going to have anything that is significant to you placed out in strategic places. When we come to the house of God, we're welcoming His Spirit. We're saying, Holy Spirit, you're welcome here, and we should roll the red carpet out in that sense of our hearts, and give the most, and give the best. And so anyway, didn't necessarily want to take the podcast on just the spirit of excellence, but when you said that, it just triggered
Yeah. I think
that hot point.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, I just think it's one of the easiest ways to stand out is to
Yeah.
just do whatever you're doing with excellence, because it is so rare. Um, you know, like we were talking about Peyton, my last tech, she really is amazing at what she does. And to the point of, like, I live in Houston. I've gone to a lot, I've many options for that. And she's an hour and a half outside of Houston. The people will be drawn to you when you do things with excellence, and the barriers to get to you don't matter anymore. And
Hmm.
even with the book situation, to be honest with you, I'm part of Chris Voss's monthly membership. It's called Fireside, and so I get email, and I also subscribe to his newsletter from his business called Black Swan Group. So I get emails from him and his companies or his groups often, right? And I got an email one day saying, like, "Hey, we want to talk to you about this opportunity. It's brand new. It's just, we're not disclosing a lot in the email, but we'd love for you to join us for this live chat." And I said, "Sure." Right? So I, like, responded, "Yes," RSVP'd or whatever. But quite honestly, I went about my normal life. I had no idea it was going to be an interview for a book, and I didn't know that Chris was going to be on the call himself. So, because I got it from, like, his associate or whatever. And um, so, yeah, I mean, I just was doing my normal life. I got home like not 5 minutes before I was supposed to have this call, just sat down to the call. Imagine my surprise when Chris and his attorney are both on the phone call, you know, talking about a book deal, and that they are interested in having me apply to be a co-author. Just crazy. Like, I was like, what in the world is happening here? I thought it was going to be a pitch for, like, another conference or some sort of retreat or some sort of thing for businesses or something, that was very broad. And so when I started down the process of it, of what they had asked me to do, I filled out the very short one page thing that they had sent to me. And I just literally was probably about 3 sentences that I wrote about what I do. And they were trying to get on a call with me. I mean, I have the spam blocker, on my phone, so
Hmm.
it doesn't let numbers I don't know come through, and it just tells me that it was spam. Yeah, they had left me several messages, but I didn't I didn't go through and check my voicemails because I'm not prone to checking those. Yeah, it turns out from the second that I had that interview, they were trying to call to get me set up for the next phase of the interview process. So, I mean, it was just things like this is like, wow, how did this happen? And I tell my clients, I'm one in a billion, but I'm not an anomaly. You're also one in a billion. Every person out there, right? We're all 1 in 8 billion. But I'm not an anomaly. I believe just because I was doing things with excellence for a long time and didn't care about getting something from somebody that they didn't come to give to me. And what I mean by that is I've worked with Hollywood people for many years, like actors, directors, other people within the Hollywood industry, and never have used their names or their position or anything for my
Hmm.
benefit. They're coming to me for help. I'm going to give them what they came for and do it with excellence. I'm going to get them results that they can't get somewhere else and not expect any kind of thing in return. And I do believe it's because I believe one of my past clients, put my name in front of Chris and his team to be able to give me this opportunity. I just don't know how else they would pick me, or even how I would show up on their radar at all. And so I just say that to say but you have to love it.
Hmm.
You can't just be doing it out of motivation, like someday I'm gonna, have this person recognize me or whatever it is. You have to love the process and love what you're doing. That's what makes it excellent.
And let me say this. I mean, yes, you do what you do with excellence, and this is part of that. But no one really knows your process. God's been taking you through a process for years, and
Yeah.
you've paid a dear price to
Yeah.
get to the point that you are. So yeah, we are one in a billion. I'm one in a billion, 7 billion, 7 point whatever, 8 billion. You're 1 in 8 billion. But yeah, your success is not an anomaly. But your process was unique to you, and you had to undergo that process that God's taken you through to get to where you are now, and you're having to undergo your process that you're in now to get to
Hmm.
where you're going in the future. And I
Hmm.
think that's one thing that people need to understand is and I've heard you say this, there are no shortcuts. There are no uh, skipping steps,
Right.
and you can't just jump into somebody else's success just because you liked them or whatever. You have to go through your process, and I think this is very significant in this season spiritually because God has taken us all through such a process right now. And it's a lot like the Jacob wrestling with the angel. It is a process that God is allowing us to wrestle with Him. He's allowing many areas of our life to be broken so that He can remold us into His image. It's us letting go of us and allowing God. I know you had your vehicle stolen, and then you had your vehicle stolen, and no, that was not a glitch. She had her vehicle stolen twice. You had all these things happen, and I remember when they found your car. Whoever stole your car had also stolen quite a bit of merchandise, and so your car was literally packed to the brim of all of this stolen merchandise, computers and guitars, and I mean just all kinds of
Printer.
huh
3D printer.
3D print and tube socks, if I remember
Yeah.
correct.
Brand new pack. Brand new pack, folks.
I got to tell you that one really confused me because you're talking about items that are thousands of dollars a piece, and then a
Yeah.
pack of
There
tube
was
socks.
also a 50-pound bag of chicken feed. 50 pounds. I'm like, why? We're feeding all the chickens.
And that's a smorgasbord of things in there. The tube socks and the chicken feed make no sense up against a Mac Mini and a
There were
Fender
several of
guitar.
those. Yeah, there were several of those. And then there was just all kind. It was so weird. Golf clubs and random.
Literally, you had probably somewhere between $70 to $85,000 worth of merchandise in that car. And then the police told you that there was nothing they could do with this. So they actually released that stuff to you because it was in your car that had been stolen. And I remember thinking, I was actually at the gym one night and I was thinking, wow, somebody stole her car. What a tragic violation. But now God's blessed her with $70,000, $80,000 worth of stuff that she can sell and literally, double the value of the car. Uh, and then you told me that you were going to give all that away. And I was literally like, wow, she just got access to these thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of stuff, but she's going to give it away. And I remember I felt the Lord speak to me. She's given this away, but watch how I bless her in return. And you didn't give it so you could get a blessing. You gave it just because you felt God was laying on your heart to do so. And you blessed other people with those items. And it's just amazing to see the process that God has been bringing you through with your businesses. I mean, in the last 3 years, you and I have been doing podcasts for 3 years or 4 years. I
We
don't. We've been
started in 2021, 3 years.
so 3 years. We've been doing this for 3 years, and in that time, God has transformed so much in your life that it's just amazing as a spectator, as a friend, to watch how God has blessed you in so many ways and just, so immaculately. Um,
Yeah, God is so good and he's so faithful. I think the shortcut people are looking for is not resisting the process and
yeah.
instead really loving it. You can't do excellence without love. God is love. So if you're going to do any kind of thing from that place, you have to love it. It not because of what it's going to give you eventually, you have to love the process. That's the
Hmm.
only thing I can say is because if you don't love your life when your car's stolen and you're spending all your time on the phone with the police and the OnStar people and the insurance and everyone else, it's gonna be it's you're just gonna keep looking for a time when it's safe enough for you to love your life and to relax, to enjoy it, to be understanding this is also a lesson just as much as
Hmm.
the peak is the lesson. The valley is the lesson, the peak is the lesson, and everything in between is a lesson. And if you don't love that whole process, it's going to be very difficult for you to do anything with excellence because you're missing the key ingredient of love.
I agree. And really, sometimes the spiritual process that God has us in is so difficult. It's a tight place. It's a difficult place. I mean, it is. Jacob wrestling with the angel. He wrestled out of desperation.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when we understand this is a process. And Jeremiah 29:11, I know the plans I think towards you, plans of good, not evil. And when we understand that we're in a process, and it's a process because God wants to bless us, then we can embrace. If we can embrace the process like we can embrace the blessing, uh,
Yeah. That's
then
what I'm saying. Yes, good. That's what I was trying to say. Thank you. That's right. That's
that
the
was a
thing.
pretty good statement.
That was really good.
But seriously, if we can embrace the process like the blessing, then the embracing of the process will allow us to the point that we can embrace that blessing. Um, and you're right. I think that's a lot of the shortcut um, that people are looking for is they want to bypass the process.
Yeah. And I was listening to one of the podcasts I believe you were doing. I think it was a podcast, maybe it was a sermon that you were doing with Mark, and you guys were talking about, how do you call it? Right? You're talking about the angel and Jacob.
Hmm.
And how do you call it? Oh, I'm Jacob. And wrestling to the point of calling it what God is calling it. And one of the things I want to say too is that the frustration people feel in the process, I think oftentimes people overlook what a blessing that is.
Hmm.
For me as a coach, I I always have known I can get my clients results. I've always known that. I've not never doubted that ever. But for me, what was frustrating is not being able to predict when is those results gonna happen, and knowing. I knew for a fact that there is a shortcut. There's a system. There's a piece in this system I'm missing. Don't know what it is, but I know that there's something that makes this predictable, right?
Hmm.
And and that frustration led me to not just interceding, because I prayed for years for God to show me how to make this happen quick for people, because people are wasting too much of their time trying to figure out why they can't get certain type of results. So not just interceding, but going to every conference available, reading books, researching stuff, spending my free time doing things that have to do with my craft, because I want to not only get people results, I want to be able to get them predictable results. So but that frustration, if I would have tried to just get away from that, I would have missed the the secret motivator for me to keep doing it and keep looking for the way to make this much quicker. Because when I look at Jesus, he didn't tell anybody, you're going to have to be in therapy for 5 years. You're going to have to go to coaching for 2 years. And and I just feel like that's the standard. So it was to me like, how do I just see myself falling short of that standard. How can I reach that standard? How can I, and I'll forever get better and better at it. But I think if you don't take all of the ingredients that you've been given in your hands and interpret them correctly, and you're trying to get rid of something like frustration, like annoyance, like, this calling, no, this longing, knowing something is missing, something could be different, something could be better, and so forth. If you don't do that, you're robbing your own self of something that could be working to your advantage. Does that make sense?
Makes complete sense. I mean, this is what James said in James chapter 1: count it all joy when you face trials of various kinds, because this is working in you the steadfastness, the patience, and patience. That word there is hupomone, and it means cheerful endurance. It is the ability to remain cheerful under long times of extreme pressure, and that's such a valuable asset. And when we embrace that struggle, which I got to tell you, the way you termed it, to embrace the frustration, it brings a bit of a different light to it, because we typically run from frustration, from aggravation. But when
Yeah.
we understand this is part of a process, when we're challenged in an area, it's a process that God is allowing us to. You can go to the gym and you can work out, and when you're challenged with a higher weight, you feel it's a challenge, and it's tearing muscle, but it's building muscle. So
Mhm.
they call it a good hurt. When you leave the gym and you're hurting, they're like, oh, but it's a good hurt, because the process is bringing forth growth. But when we go through aggravation in life, nobody says, "Oh, that's a good aggravation. I just love that. I love people cutting me off in traffic. Man, that's great. I love people calling me names." And but the reality is, it's the same way, because it is ripping something in us spiritually and emotionally, and God is allowing something to be ripped away
Yeah.
and torn up, so that He can build what He is called to be there. And so I really like the way you term that, to embrace that aggravation, and accept it as a part of that process, and that is growing, maturing, educating our spiritual walk, our emotional walk, and our mental self.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely been true for me. And the more that I work with other people who have experienced really insane things that have happened to them, truly unspeakable things, and wrongs, injustices done to them, but the way that they've been able to turn that into a completely different life. They've used this, like, destruction that they've
Hmm.
faced, everything that they've ever loved and known and thought would happen being torn away from them, and building it into something so beautiful, so steadfast. That's how I know this is not this isn't just the lucky people. this is absolutely a system all of us are supposed to be participating in.
Have I ever told you the story, or have you ever heard the story of Woody the Woodpecker?
No.
Okay, that sounds funny. That sounds like the punchline to a joke. But um, we know the cartoon Woody Woodpecker. Bye bye bye. Very annoying little bird. But the way that got started is there was a young couple that got married and they didn't have a whole lot of money for a honeymoon, and they had saved up enough to rent a cabin in I believe it was Yellowstone National Park. And the first night or the first evening, this woodpecker starts just beating away at the cabin. And so the husband was so frustrated. And then the next day they woke up, they were going to sleep in. It's their honeymoon. And they woke up at literally daybreak to this woodpecker just pat, 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 pat. And so after 3 or 4 days of this, they were there for, I think, 5 days or 6 days. After a couple of days of this, the man was so frustrated, and as a way to kind of relieve some of the frustration, he began to draw this woodpecker, and then he began to make a cartoon out of the drawings, and so his wife began to put a voice behind his little cartoon, and that actually birthed what we know as the cartoon Woody Woodpecker. And the wife was interviewed late in life, and the husband had already passed away, and they asked her about it. She said that annoyance, that aggravation was the absolute best thing that had ever happened to us. It literally, I mean, it set them up financially. It set them up in so many ways, and I just think it's kind of amazing that a woodpecker, a bird, did that.
That is really amazing. That's a great story. And that is such a good summation of the things that we have available to us, but we just try to get rid of them instead of embracing them and finding out what is the way that this thing is going to change my life for the better, right? And that's one of the things that in this season specific, I just feel is so widely available for people. And the great thing about God is that it's never too late. And so if you're like, well, I've been dealing with it for 20 years, or I've been dealing with that annoyance for 30 years, it doesn't matter. If today is the day that you're actually ready to embrace it and stop running away from it, then today is the day that you figure out why that has been there and why God didn't take it from you. You know, why you, no matter what you tried, you couldn't get away from it. Instead of trying to get away from it, that's the door. That's the doorway out of one and into a new one. And I think that's just so important for people to recognize right now. But that story is exactly what I really want to drive home for people this season, is that the thing, instead of what we often, I've noticed people, and including maybe myself, go through, is that we're experiencing something, we get out of it, right? We seemingly escape that thing. And now what we try to do is pretend that those last X amount of years, 2 years, 20 years, whatever it was, didn't happen. And we literally deny our own self and deny our own experience, which isn't just the thing that would set us free, but set other people free as well. The second you stop
Mhm.
resisting how you think your story should go and address it from a realistic perspective, hey, this is what happened, this is what actually went on, is the time when you can really embrace your authenticity and show up in an authentic way. And that's when everything changes, because no longer do you have to hide this thing that happened, or this thing you don't want people to know about, or you think people look at you different if they knew your whole story or whatever. And you just recognize this is not something, and this is something that I'm really teaching my clients right now too, is that thing didn't happen to you, you happened to it. So instead of looking like these negative things happen to me, instead saying like, no, I'm happening to these negative things. The that that woodpecker is not just driving me nuts. This woodpecker, I'm happening to the woodpecker, right? I'm here to draw this woodpecker and come up with something, funny that's gonna make other people laugh or whatever. And so if when you change the perspective on what's happening, that it's a lot easier to stop taking things, we talked about this many times before, but stop taking things so personally and really start utilizing them for purposes instead of just like weights. of this is the reason I can't move on, or I would have done X, Y, and Z, but I couldn't because of this thing. And I was never taught any different. And just outsourcing all of this responsibility that really would, if you would take responsibility for it, you would be able to change your life immediately, because you wouldn't have to spend so much energy trying to put on a show or a fake persona, because you think that's what people want. People want authenticity, and you'll feel so much better when you're living authentically as well.
People do want authenticity, and I like what you said. And I'll say it a little bit differently. If people know your story, they will think about you differently, but not in a negative way. Because when they know your story and they see what you've come through, then all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, you've overcome so many obstacles, and so many times we see this finished product and we don't realize what it goes through to get to that place. And if you've ever seen something being built, and you come up on just the slab of a house, and it's like,
Yeah.
what can be here? And
Mm.
when you see that we're a slab, we're a foundation, and all of these things, there's been times that we had to have some walls knocked out, and there's times that we've had walls fall on us. When people know your story, and not in a way of just drudging through the mud, but when they know that you've been through things and you're still standing, I think it gives people a lot of respect. And everybody's got a story. And I
That's
was
right.
talking to someone one day, and they're like, "Oh, I wish I had a story like theirs." And I'm like, "No, you don't. You need your
Yeah.
story." That's one thing that makes us all so unique, is we each have this grand story of our life, and some people don't think theirs are as exciting, but they are, because nobody knows your dark trials that you go through. Nobody knows the sleepless nights that you go through. Nobody knows the pains and the hurts and the rejections, and it may not sound as profound as someone else or as extreme as someone else. I mean, I've done some really fun things, but I've never jumped out of a plane. And the only way that I'm going to jump out of a plane is if I'm thrown out of a plane. Uh, so, so I don't have this great story of a skydiver that has, this GoPro video of him jumping out of a plane. But I've got my own stories, and they're just as special to me as the jump out of the plane was for them. So, again, embrace your process, embrace your struggle, embrace your aggravation, and embrace your story, who you are.
Yeah, and doing it with excellence, tying this all back to what we talked about in the first place, is not just embracing it, but understanding. So, first step, not resisting, right? Second step, embracing. Third step, using it with excellence of how can I perfect the process of going through whatever it is that I'm going through for me, right? How do I pick out the things that are annoyances, the things that are really coming up for me while I'm experiencing this thing? What are those deep emotions that I'm experiencing? Those are always tied to a belief system, to a value that you hold in your non-conscious. How do I pull those up and really deal with those head on, so
Hmm.
that I can do this process with excellence? That's authenticity. Not just saying, yeah, I'm going through this hard thing, but everybody goes through hard things, so this too shall pass. Although I like that saying, that it's deeper. It goes deeper than that, so that you don't,
Hmm.
every time that you go through something else, you're not experiencing this burden every time, to where you're
Hmm.
actually able to say, like, yeah, I'm able to partner with this thing. It's not that big of a deal,
Are
truly.
are you learning?
Yeah. Are you learning? Are you growing? Yeah, it's good.
I think that's a big thing, because I've heard people say, like, when you're when they are addressed in their business or ministry or whatever, they're like, "Well, been doing this for 20 years." That doesn't mean you've been learning for 20 years. It means you've been repeating a process for 20 years.
100%. Yeah.
And I know you deal with that with clients. And we need to look at every process that we're in, every aggravation. What can I learn from this? What can I take away from this? Even our mistakes. I think we learn more from mistakes than we do from successes. I mean, if you've ever hit your finger with a hammer, it leaves a lasting impression. You can hit 1,000 nails just right, and you won't remember any of those, but you will remember the time that you missed the nail and hit your thumb.
That's really good.
We learn from those mistakes, and when we can learn from them, I mean, I've told you the story before. I was using a nailer one day, and the nail went into a board and hit a grain and came out the wrong way, and it went through my finger. And so I nailed my finger to a board, and I just ripped it out. And not the smartest thing to do, I don't think, but
Oh,
a couple years later, I'm building something, and I'm using a framing nailer, and I did not even come close to having an accident with that framing nailer, because when I was using a finish nailer and I nailed a board through my thumb, it left such a lasting learning experience with me that using the larger nailer, I kept my non-gun hand away, far away from anything that could splinter out. And my point is that some of the most painful things that we go through are, if we look at them correctly and look at them from an educational standpoint or viewpoint, then we can learn from each of these things. I have gotten up and ministered so many times and walked away like, am I even called to preach? Because the sermon itself would be so bad, and I would be beating myself up. I would stumble over my words and so forth. And all of those were cherished moments now because I learned so much from those times. And we have to have those learning processes. So
yeah,
I would just
absolutely.
encourage everyone to embrace the. I don't want to say embrace failure in the sense of looking forward to failure, but embrace your past and embrace these things. And when you go through something, understand this is an opportunity to learn. This is an opportunity to grow. I don't want to repeat this mistake again. I don't want to repeat this season again. I don't want to be hurt like this again. How do I effectively because some people, when they're hurt, they throw up these walls of protection, and so they won't let anyone in. Well, that's not the answer. If you've been hurt in church, to throw up walls around church, that's not the answer. If you've been hurt in a relationship, to throw walls up against anyone of that type relationship, that's not the answer. But you do take those times and you learn where could I have seen things coming? Where were the warning signs that I missed? Where were the indicators that should have been setting off red flags early on? Those around me that I trust, were they in agreement the whole time, or were they against this relationship? Were they against this process? Was it just that I wasn't listening to wise counsel and those that care about me? We learn from all those things, and then we grow, and then we move on to the next challenge and the next mountain to climb. And I believe a lot of people right now are in a season that they feel like it's destruction, but it's not. You are in a season of advancement. You are in a season of elevation where God is about to elevate you, but you are in the valley before the mountain, and you're going through a process where God is wrestling with you, and He is challenging you. He's challenging your innate desires. He's challenging you on the inside. He's challenging your preconceptions of people, of ministry, of life, of business. And if you'll submit to that process, if you'll allow God to have His work, this is a wrestling match that you're in, and God's wrestling to form you into who you were created to be. He's forming you to prepare you for the season that's right ahead. And if you'll embrace that process, then you will allow God to form in you that the needed traits and characteristics and the way of thinking, the mindsets that are necessary for this next season. So some that are feeling like this is one of the worst times that you've seen, or one of the most difficult, I would say get ready, because it is some of the worst of times, but it is also some of the best of times. So get ready for some of the best of times that you've seen.
I love that. That's so good. And I would definitely agree with everything you just said. I think it's really important people look at failure as a feedback system. So, okay, that
Hmm.
didn't, and approaching it more of a curious standpoint as opposed to an exact standpoint. So instead of like,
Hmm.
that didn't work, I'm never doing that again. I'm a failure at this, I'm never doing it again. But instead saying, this is a feedback system for me. I wonder what would happen if I tried this next time. I wonder what would have happened if I
Hmm.
would have taken this approach. I wonder what would have happened if I had listened to X, Y, and Z, counsel around me, so forth. And that's why I say it doesn't matter if you've been dealing with this annoyance, frustration for 20 years. The day is today. If today you're done just being frustrated with it and you want it to mean something, then today is your day. It is always when you come to that realization and you're ready to make it mean something else, right? Because we're created in the image of the creator to create in the image of the creator. So anytime you're ready to create that situation, that failure into feedback, into something beautiful for your future, then today is the day. It's whenever you've decided it's the time, and I love what you were just saying is like, this is really because I feel that. I see that so much whenever I see it happening multiple times with clients that are very different situations, very different, and they're all experiencing the same thing. It's how like, oh, it's a time and a season for this to come to an end, or for this thing to progress,
Hmm.
or for this chapter to close and a new one to begin, and so forth. So I definitely agree. This is the season for people to start, because your message matters, your story matters, your experience matters, and really knowing that, right? Not just saying like, oh yeah, I'm sure it does matter. We'll figure out why it mattered when we get to heaven. It matters now. It matters today. Today. That knowledge is only useful here. In heaven, that's not useful.
When you and you've got so many videos on your channel, when you've shared your story, there are people out there that can relate to that story, and they need that for hope. They need that for strength.
Yeah.
You interviewed Chrissy
Yeah.
on your channel. I forget Chrissy's last name. Um,
Her new last name is Castananda now, but her name at the time was Lane, Chrissy Lane.
okay, well, her new name would be difficult for me to pronounce at the moment. So, but her story. Uh,
No.
I mean, oh my gosh, her son was murdered, and she was sent a tape of it, and I just beyond the other elements of her story, there are people out there like I can't relate to that.
Yeah.
And so if somebody's going through that, I can minister to them from the grace of Jesus Christ, but I can't empathize with them because I've been through it. And so her story is going to reach certain people that no one else could reach. And
Yeah.
when we think of it in that way, we're so unique. I mean, I grew up in a pastor's home, so I truly watch the best examples of pastors that I think I could have had in my parents on how they handle things, and betrayal and frustration and the demands of being in ministry. I watch them handle this with the heart of the Lord. But many people that go into ministry, they have never been around that, and so it's a shock to them. And so they get 2-3 years into pastoring, and they look up thinking, "What did I do? Why did I choose a ministry?"
Hmm.
And so they need to hear some of the stories, but they don't need to hear it from somebody who's saying it in hurt, because you got a
Right.
pastor over there that's telling their stories out of hurt, and really all they're doing is lashing out at everything and everyone that makes them angry. They need to hear a story like that from a place of honesty and a place of healing and a place of understanding. And so when we understand that, that each of us have this story. Matter of fact, I had a lady call me one time, and she was traveling with a family member, and they were on the airplane, and she said, he really needs to be witnessed to. And I said, well, I understand. And she said, so I gave him your number. And I said, well, why didn't you give him my number? I mean, I don't mind talking to the person, but this lady did not witness to him, and he was hurting, and he needed someone to really minister the love of Jesus to him. And I said, well, why didn't you? And she said, well, I just didn't think I could come up with the words. And my thought was, you've been in church longer than I've been alive. You should be able to do this. And so things like this, we discount our own story. We discount our own life, when in reality, each one of us have a story that someone needs. Each one of us have a life events and challenges and struggles that we need. Sometimes, the person that's lived such a good life, such a healthy life, sometimes we need their story. It's not just about the failures and the dark times. Sometimes it's about watching somebody who's been able to stand up against temptation and not succumb. Sometimes it's about watching somebody that's lived a healthy life for so long to see, man, if they did that, I can start now. So my point is that we need to all embrace who we are, the story that we have, and what God can do with this story. And none of us are where we need to be.
Yeah.
We're growing. Like you said earlier, you're going to be better at what you do. We're growing. We're learning. We're maturing. I'm not the same person I was a year ago, and I'm not going to be the same person a year from now. I believe that God is continually moving and growing and elevating every step of the way.
Yeah, for sure. Again, going back to like being authentic, I would say when you're looking at like, oh, this person needs a certain thing or this person needs a certain thing, that is still a way to escape what is being presented to you. Because chances are, when you see somebody needing a certain thing, you we can feel so like either we don't it's uncomfortable for us, so we don't want to deal with it, or we feel unqualified, or we feel whatever it is that we're feeling, but that all has to do with us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's showing up authentically and saying like, I feel underqualified or unqualified altogether to show up and help this person or deal with this situation. So I'm facing that head on. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just be honest with that and with this
Mm-hmm.
person. Hey, I feel unqualified to help you in this situation because I've never dealt with that. However, here's what I do know. Here's a truth that I hold on to. Here's something that helped me when I was going through a difficult time. Not that we're comparing, because we always feel like, oh, that person is better than me or going through something worse than me or dealing with it, and it's not that. It's just being authentic and saying, hey, this is something that helped me when I was going through something that was really difficult for me. That's authenticity. That's not getting out. That's not outsourcing responsibility for the person
Mm-hmm.
who's in front of you, right? And the opportunity that you have. And then after that, maybe have a dialogue, and maybe that person is asking, hey, do you have a pastor that you trust who could pray with me, or do you have somebody that you trust
Mm-hmm.
that I could speak with, or whatever. Okay, great. But it's not just outsourcing the whole thing to
Exactly.
somebody else, because we each are putting in a piece of that, right? Of that puzzle that is somebody else's life. And the other thing too is we're all here on purpose right now. That means that there's somebody out there that you're connected, that you're supposed to connect to. It is that the reason you're on the planet is to connect to that person, and the reason that person's on the planet right now is to connect to another person. So we're all intertwined, and it's understanding, hey, if I'm connected to this person, there's a reason here. What is the lesson? What is the thing? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't believe in accidents or coincidences. So I believe that every connection in life it's purposed.
Yeah.
Now we need to identify the purpose. Was this a relationship or a connection that the enemy sent to destroy, or was this one that God sent to build upon? And so we do need to identify those areas. But I think every part of life, and I'll say this: when you're talking to someone Well, how about this? Let me say it this way: the ones that I am the most impacted by are the ones that come from a heart of humility. I don't care how successful, I don't care how great. If it's arrogance and pride behind it, it is so hard for me to tolerate. And but if somebody comes from a place of humility, I will learn and grow and draw more from that person just because I can connect to their heart. And I'll give you an example. A few weeks ago, you interviewed Dr. Ben Edwards on your program on your channel, and I don't know him personally. I've not sat down with him to know what kind of person he really is, but the way he came across was so humble and so compassionate. So I watched his interview with you, and I've gone and watched a lot of his videos on his channel. And what I see is this man of humility, but yet great wisdom and great education
And I
and
will also
experience.
say he's what I like about him, he's the same person on camera and off camera, but what I like about him is he's very humble but also very bold, right?
Yes.
He's um very steadfast and calm, but he's very bold in what he's saying and he's not holding back. He's not pulling punches. He's speaking out the
Hmm.
truth in his boldness, but also from a place of groundedness and humbleness and assuredness of who God is to him.
Humility is not timidity.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
and I think
That's good.
sometimes people kind of confuse that.
That's good.
But just because you're timid doesn't mean you're humble, and to be humble doesn't mean you're timid. You're right, Dr. Edwards. Man, he's very bold. He fought so much resistance with his practice and his YouTube channel during the COVID because he would stand up for truly what he believed in. He was anti-mask, anti-vaccine, and he stood behind those things no matter the cost. And
Yeah, he was canceled, so he's starting over. I mean, he was deplatformed.
and in this society right now, we have things that are you have to be so cautious in what you say because you can be banned from social media, banned from YouTube, banned from this, banned from that, and so much of the church now has gotten to the point that they've cowered in timidity, not humility. And so they've shied away from things. I know there were a lot of churches this past Sunday. Last Sunday was Easter, and on Resurrection Sunday,
Yeah.
and so a lot of churches in their advertisements and in their push for the Easter service, they refuse to say anything about the cross.
So disappointing.
They refuse to say the word blood
Yep.
and the word Calvary. And I'm thinking, without Calvary, without
It's
the
the whole
blood,
message. Yeah.
and without the cross, we have nothing.
Yeah.
So they literally and the point was that they didn't want to offend anyone. Well, that's timidity. Either you believe what you believe or you don't. And if you don't believe it, don't call yourself a church of God. And that just is what it is. Our president claims to be a Christian Catholic. Well, you don't claim to be a Christian Catholic and then get up and make a declaration from the White House that is anti-Christ,
Yeah.
plain and simple. And so timidity is not humility. Humility is not timidity. You can be humble and bold. And you're right. I did not get any sense from any of the videos I've watched of Dr. Edwards. I've not gotten any sense of timidity, but yet I've got such a sense of humility and such a sense of compassion. This is a doctor who truly
Mhm.
cares for his patients in such a way that I don't think you can have that level of compassion without truly God moving through you to give you that level of compassion for people.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Actually, I just sent him a message this morning asking a question, something that I come across on the internet, and I wanted to get his medical opinion on it. But yeah, he's so approachable and really like that. I will say he does everything with excellence. He cares about his craft.
Hmm.
He cares about very much people's bodies and how people experience life is very dependent on how they feel in their body, you
Hmm.
know? And I think it's just so important that we take people like that and model when we see excellence, we should take away something of how we could incorporate what they're doing in our own authentic way. And one thing that people do or try to do is cater to when you try to make everybody happy, you make no one happy, and then you feel frustrated
Hmm.
because your message didn't land with anybody, or it didn't have the effect that you thought it was gonna you were going after, and that's because you lacked authenticity. The tr-
Absolutely.
mhm. The tree grows equally as deep as it does up. Do you want to know where the tree's roots are? Look how far out its branches go. That's how far down and how far wide is its roots. If I was dealing with a house and the sidewalk was getting crazy because of a tree, but if you look at how far its branches were, because that's how far its roots were underneath the sidewalk, and why
Hmm.
it was causing the foundation problems, like even past the sidewalk into the other yard and into the house, is because that's how far its roots were growing. That's what we should be doing, is that far deep, that far wide. Instead, people try to make the branches, the outer stuff, the things everybody gets to see, big, when that's not. The outside stuff will naturally grow big when your roots are that big, the things that people can't see.
And that's the difference between religion versus relationship, because religion is about the external conformity.
Mm.
It's about making the outside look religious,
Yeah, that's
and that has nothing to do with it. You can, if the outside looks great, but the inside is rotten, then you haven't done anything.
yeah.
But through relationship, God goes internal and He does this heart surgery and He begins to clean us out from the inside out, and then the external becomes the byproduct. All of a
That's
sudden, where
exactly
there's
right.
dead branches, now there's new branches growing and replacing those. And so yeah, and I agree, man. When I'm watching people, whether it be videos, ministers, whatever, or even people that I don't agree with, I have no problem watching someone, listening to someone that I don't agree with, when they do so in a good way, and they're real to who they are. I
Yes.
would I would rather deal with someone who is true to who they are that I don't agree with than someone who I think I agree with, but they're fake. And I can't pinpoint who they really are. I can't pinpoint their motivation. I can't pinpoint. It's like politicians, man. When you watch these politicians and you see their rhetoric, you have no idea what they're actually standing for. They get up and they give their rhetoric and they pass a bill to help this over here. Well, then you get the bill and you find out that you spend $5 million over here on something that you disagree with, 10 million over there, 15 million over there, and so the $50 million bill that was passed only put like $2 million toward what it's actually supposed to, and then feeding all these other things that you don't like. So authenticity, genuineness, I think is priceless, and that is for ministers, that is for coaches, that is for people in life.
Every person on the planet.
Every person, just be genuine, and
Mhm.
if it's not a pretty picture, then ask God to transform from the inside out and allow the transformation to bring the byproduct of what's on the outside.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I think what you're talking about ties just so much into everything. Like you can't do excellence without it being real. You
Hmm.
know, it's like that there is no such thing as like outward excellence without inner excellence. And it is just you can tell it so instantaneously when it's just a show and no
Yeah.
one's drawn to that. You know, not to like get so and I really like what you were talking about with you could pick up on somebody who knows something that you don't understand even if you don't agree with what they're doing,
Yeah.
you know, without getting too into it. I got connected with a lady who who has a platform on OnlyFans, which obviously I don't agree with. If you don't, I'm not even going to discuss what it is, but I don't agree with it. However, what she was coming to me for is help with how to manage her money. how to make her money make money. So she understands the system of how to make money herself. She doesn't understand the system of her money making money.
Hmm.
And so when you understand, like, she understands a system that people all day are in church and don't understand, right? And when money was God's idea, that's his idea, and yet you'll have people in church all day that don't understand it,
Hmm.
but she does. She understands it. And so I think it's so important that we are able to see again what is in front of us genuinely, not what we think it is, or our judgments, or our preconceived notions, or what we, because we're just doing it through this like cookie cutter of like, this is how it has to look and this is how it has to look, but that's not ever how Jesus did anything, ever. He never did anything cookie cutter. Otherwise we'd all be doing that, right?
Genesis through Revelation, there are principles and there are patterns, but there are not any type of cookie cutter methods.
On
And
purpose.
yeah,
On
because
purpose.
it's not about the 5 step, 6 step,
That's right.
7 step process. It's about the relationship.
That's
So,
right.
you have someone like Joshua who's called to go around, march around Jericho once a day for 6 days, and then 7 times on the seventh day, and blow the shofars. Well, no other place in Scripture do you see that protocol. He tells Gideon to take his 300 men up against the army of 300,000 and station his men strategically around this mountain with clay pots. Nowhere else in Scripture do you find that God gave them victory with clay pots. With Joshua, another time, God causes the sun to stand still in the sky. David, he tells him to hit him from the front. Another time, flank him from the rear. Another time, wait till you hear the angels marching in the trees above your head. And it's because it was about the proximity to Christ, not the pattern or the method that we could just implement these 3 steps and you're going to have success. It's not about that at all. Our spiritual walk is all about relationship with Jesus Christ. And when we understand that, then we understand I don't have to know all the right steps. I can learn from this person. I can learn from this person. But it's not about having to have their steps and their process. They had their process. They're unique. Is there something I can learn from their mistakes or their successes? Absolutely. But other than that, I've got to be in proximity to Christ myself so that I can hear that still small whisper when he says, go right, go left. When he tells me to do something, I can hear his voice and be obedient in that moment. When someone hurts me, that's representing him, then I can feel the Lord say, that's not me, that's man. It's all about the proximity in the relationship that we walk in as individuals. And someone that doesn't have that, they're lacking so much in their life that they just don't understand. And many of them run from God because, they've had this misrepresentation of who God is. God literally loves us so much that he sent his son, and his son willfully came to pay the price for each one of us. I mean, right now, if you say anything about Jesus, it's like everybody's feathers gets ruffled. But the reality is he left a heavenly throne and came to earth, took on the weakness of humanity, and then went to the cross willfully to pay for our sins. There should be nothing offensive about the name of Jesus. I mean, literally, he died for us. There's no more compassion. There's no more love that anyone could ever show than what Christ did. I mean, even people that don't believe should, at the very least, just say, well, I don't know if this really happened or not, and then move on. But there is an animosity against Christ. So for those that don't have that, I do feel sorry for them, but it's available. That relationship is available. And when we walk in that proximity to God, we go through these tough times, and we're never alone. We're never abandoned. We're never forsaken. He's always with us.
Mm-hmm.
So I was commenting on that, but it took a more of a salvation turn there. But the reality is he is our hope, and he is our promise. And in that, when we do things with excellence, our spiritual walk, our natural walk, when we do things with excellence and we're striving, working out our salvation with fear and trembling, and we're striving in that relationship with the Lord, there is literally nothing that is impossible. There are literally there's no amount of success that is impossible. You were
That's
talking about this woman who understands how to make money.
right.
Well, people in the church should be spearheading business.
I agree.
People in the church should be spearheading technology. They should be
Yeah,
spearheading medicine. This is one thing I
I
love about like Dr. Edwards. Going back to him, this is something I really appreciate because you got a man of God here that truly hears from God and cares about the soul of the person that he's tending to, but also the body of the person. And you have him that is literally amongst a group that is spearheading, pioneering a different understanding in the medical practice. And we should be at the forefront of everything. We should be at the forefront of movies, at the forefront of television, at the forefront of social media. There needs to be a Christian group to replace Facebook. There needs to be a
agree.
Christian group to replace YouTube. And I appreciate the
Yeah.
platform of Facebook and YouTube. I really do, because we are able to do videos like this. But at the same time, if I say one thing wrong, they'll pull the video. If I say one thing they don't agree with, I mean, 2 years ago, you mentioned ivermectin, and oh my goodness, you are blackballed from everything. Well, now they've come out and they're like, oh, well, ivermectin does work, Uh,
Well, yes, Justin, this is going back to what you were talking about earlier with like if you say anything about Jesus, people who don't believe, I always say this, like first of all, everybody's on their own journey. So, okay, go on your journey, but pay attention to the things that people are trying to ban you from talking about. No,
yes.
no one's trying to ban you if you say Mohammed. No one's trying to ban you if you say Buddha or any other thing. Okay, it's offensive. It's offensive to people when you say the word Jesus. It's offensive to people if you talk about COVID. It's offensive to people if you talk about any, ivermectin or what's going on in your tap water or look at what they're trying to keep you from talking about, just as like this starting point. And maybe the things they don't want you talking about are the things that you actually need in your life.
Yeah. Not tap water, though. You don't need tap water except for
Right, exactly.
showers.
No, you don't need tap water. For sure not. And even for showers, your skin is your biggest organ. Maybe look into that. But yes, I digress. What I like about Ben too is that he understands things as a whole, and
Hmm.
they have a store at their doctor's office where they sell fresh everything from the farmer down the road, and raw everything, not nothing processed, everything fresh, immediate from and I took because I was talking to him about how I want grocery stores. I believe that I'm going to own a bunch of grocery stores, and they're just farmers, not crazy things that get delayed on ships randomly whenever we need something to distract people with. Yeah, and so I was talking to him about that. He's like, "Oh yeah, we do that." So he sees things holistically and really cares about what the every single building block that people are given, right? And that's what I really appreciate is that it's not just one part of like your body, right? And he in the interview that I did with him on my channel, you can hear him talking about how he just talked to this woman. This woman was young, healthy, but she did not have oxygen. She was not able to keep oxygen in her body and really low oxygen levels in her blood. So he just started talking to her about all of the things that he knew she believed and undoing
Hmm.
those fears, undoing the fears that she had. And as he's talking to her, you could see her blood get reoxygenated. All disease cannot survive in the presence of oxygen.
Hmm.
Literally your breath. Yep, if you learn how to control your breath, you can learn to eliminate disease out of your body. Go find that in a medical textbook. Go find that at your regular doctor's office. No, you're going to have a prescription and a thing and a thing.
and a
God,
prescription to combat the effects of the first prescription, and another prescription to combat the effects of the first two.
and you're going to have to come back in 6 weeks forever and ever, amen. And probably your children are going to have it because it's now genetic. We got to start waking it up, because how you were created, again, I say it again, you are created in the image of your creator. Your breath was the first thing. If you're not starting at that building block, maybe don't jump the next step to like finding out somebody to tell you about your own body. And the other thing is too that I'm like really tuning into right now for myself is, instead of thinking my body houses my spirit, which is ridiculous because my spirit is eternal and could never be contained, is that my body is inside my spirit. My spirit is bigger than what is just my body, and understanding that you're living, and in him we live and move and have our being. Think about what that means. How is that possible if your spirit is inside your body? So I just think we need to start getting back into like who's believing this? Did I hear this from God, or is this just something that somebody taught me and I've just taken it as gospel truth without really seeing how this impacts me, you know?
Well,
Wow, this is a long tangent.
uh, uh,
Covered a lot.
but yeah, let's hit that because again, I was listening to Dr. Ben, and he was interviewing another doctor, and they were talking about cholesterol.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
the report or the belief in the medical community is that if you have high cholesterol, then you're going to have a heart attack, and you got to be on a statin drug. Well, that started from a doctor back some 50 years ago or longer, and it was a theory, not a proven
Been
fact.
debunked. Yes, exactly. Been debunked many years since. Never was proven true.
It was never proven true. It's been debunked 1,000 times over, but yet that's still the protocol. That is still what the doctors do. If you have a high cholesterol, they immediately tell you if you don't get the cholesterol down, you're going to have a heart attack, and they put you on a statin drug. And get this, I was watching TV the other night with Shauna, and I just start laughing. And she looks at me because it's during a commercial, and she's like, "What are you laughing at?" I said, "Did you not just hear this?" It was a commercial for a statin drug, which I hate the drug commercials, but that seems to be 90% of what we have. And so this drug commercial's on there, and it's a statin drug, which is to lower your cholesterol. And then at the end of it, it says, "Diet and exercise will negatively affect this medication." And when I heard that, I'm like, so you're telling me that I need to eat unhealthy and do not exercise in order for your drug to work that is supposed to combat the effect of not eating right and not exercising?
It's unbelievable. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Maybe start at the basics of what they don't want you to hear about. If there's something they don't want you to hear about, or want to pretend like it doesn't matter, like breath, like that breath doesn't matter, that's ridiculous. Again, go back to the way that you were first initially created. I just think it's, why is it that when somebody puts their feet in the sand within 10 minutes, every single all of the electromagnetism that people store in their body that causes anxiety, it causes, why do you think people heal at the beach? Why do you think everybody is like, I need a vacation, and goes to the beach? Because there's sand there. Why don't we start looking at where do people come out of? Isn't it interesting that God made people from dirt? Like when you go back to what is the original, it just makes it's very easy to pick out the counterfeit, as long as you don't allow all of this stuff to cloud up, right? To get in the middle. And then it's like, well, maybe that's a possibility. That's ridiculous.
You know, my wife is at work right now, and so normally she goes home the day we do a podcast, and she'll listen to the podcast that night. I'm gonna have to try to cut this part out because she loves the beach, and now she's gonna be telling me, "See, it's medically necessary that I go to the beach." So,
Yeah. Well, actually, that in the 50s and 60s, Women were diagnosed with something that only women could get diagnosed with, which was called like hyperhysteria or something, and the cure for it was to send them to the beach. That's what literally the prescription, the doctors would say, like, oh, they just get better when they go there. And like it's just so interesting to me of like how most medical facilities too, like cancer places, I'm talking about not like regular type hospitals, they'll try to be on a body of water because the looking at the waves calms people down. But the truth is that that's just one of many things that's happening. The sound, the frequency of waves, the actual particles that sand is made up of for people's bodies, like this, all of it goes together. And when we try to separate, like, oh, that doesn't have anything to do with us, that's crazy. God created an environment specific for people, specific to people, and everything else. He first made the water, then put the fish in it. He first made land, then put trees on it. There was a specific order. Everything was made to go together. And if we don't think about all of our healing is already available to us in our environment. That's how it was created. It was created to do that for us. I just think that we should, put a little bit more attention on like God's very intentional, and I bet I might not need not another prescription, not another whatever. Maybe what I need is to go back to like how was I originally created to and designed to function.
I think it's just amazing that that God has created our bodies in such a way to literally heal itself, to rejuvenate itself, and we do so much to fight that process. And again, spiritually, it's the same way. Sometimes you don't need another conference. You don't need another
Yeah.
um, spiritual guru. You know, with a new idea. I know in the prophetic move, a lot of people are constantly seeking that personal word, which you and I both have had such powerful words spoken to us and have spoken such powerful words to people, and they can be life changing with direction and with hope and so forth. And so, I'm all for prophecy and prophetic words, but sometimes people get so focused on getting that next prophetic word that they live from one prophetic word to another, to another, to another, and they never get anything established. They never have any success with this because they're just jumping from word to word to word. Sometimes you don't need another word. Sometimes you need to stand on the ones that you've already received. I know the lady who used to be our secretary, Miss Nidra, which is just she's passed away a few years ago, and I still miss her as much today as I did when she first passed away. But somebody came to her and they said, have you received a word today? And this person was, if I remember correct, was a Jezebel anyway. And so Miss Nature grabs her Bible and she holds it up. She says, yeah, 66 books worth. And so, that's kind of the reality. Sometimes we're constantly looking for something new, something fresh, and there are times for that. But sometimes we need to rely on, rest on what we have right in front of us, and with our bodies, with our emotions, with our spirits, and trust in what God's already established. And so again, I think it's amazing that God's created our bodies this way, and I think it's amazing that doctors around the country, especially like Dr. Ben Edwards, they're spearheading the understanding of let's get to the root of this. I don't want to treat your symptoms. I don't want to treat your sniffle. I want to find
Yeah.
out why you're sniffling,
Yeah, and I think that's a great place for people to start when it comes to really incorporating excellence into their everyday walk. Like doing every single thing with excellence can just start with how are you taking care of your own self. And in fact, I do think that that's where you need to start because you can't give away something that you don't have. So if you don't understand what it's like to treat your own self with excellence, you're not going to understand how it's like to serve others with excellence either.
True. And that's living life to the fullest is living with a spirit of excellence. And if we do everything with excellence, I mean, when you go to a store, when you go to a restaurant, and you can tell that nobody wants to be there. I mean the staff and the workers, and everything is halfway done. You don't want to be there. And I mean, when I go to the store, uh, and I'm trying to find something, and I'm looking at the shelf, right, and I know where this is supposed to be, but it's not here. It's way down there because somebody moved it, just threw it up there, and everything is chaotic. And I'm like, really? I went to the store the other day, the grocery store. Shauna sent me in for just a couple things, and I was like, sure. And a couple things ends up growing and growing. But anyway, when I get there, the shelves are empty in certain places, and I'm like, what in the world? We are a truly a blessed, successful nation. Why am I having trouble finding bread? It just makes no sense. Which, by the way, you can tell Dr. Ben that he is more than welcome to come over here to Louisiana and open up a Veritas Wellness a facility and one of his grocery stores. He will be. I can't guarantee everybody will support him, but I can guarantee him I will support him.
Yeah, I know. I told him actually, like he is expanding. He started another one in the central Texas, and I told him keep. He's out in West Texas, and I said keep expanding east.
Yeah,
East,
keep growing.
yeah. It's just a little further, you'll be in Houston. Absolutely. Yeah, he does have plans to expand, which is great. One of the things that he's working on too is a book, which I think is going to just be priceless for people to, be able to tap into his wisdom and be able to utilize it and so forth. But yeah, I mean, exactly what you're talking about, where it's like the the lack of excellence is so stunningly obvious, and yet we're somehow becoming now accustomed to lack of excellence, which is why I say if you do one thing with excellence, you're going to stand out so strongly. You're going to garnish attention for what you're doing, and people with that, also that spirit of excellence, are going to be drawn to you.
Well, yeah, because right now when you go somewhere, or especially if you like deal with, I don't know how Texas is, but if you deal with the state of Louisiana for anything, you have to almost do it for them,
Yeah.
and don't expect anything to be fast. Um, it goes across the board. There's been an overall in the last
Yeah. Yep.
several years
I know where you're
across
going.
the board, there has been an overall decline, a drastic, fast decline of any sense of excellence from politics to business to church to anything. It has been almost like no one cares.
Yeah, on purpose, I would say. I
I
do
would
believe
too.
it's to get people to get reset and expectations to drop, and getting people to believe more in this fake confinement, getting
Yes.
people to outsource their power, believe that they're powerless, believe that they can't affect anything, believing that it's like my way or the highway. You have to do what I say. If you don't do it, I control your money, your job, your family, your access
Hmm.
to things. I actually saw this crazy YouTube video the other day. There's they're putting all of the food behind these walls that you have to activate by moving your hand. Why would that be a thing unless there's a next step coming, which is that you're going to have a chip to open the door to have food? Like, these are already being implemented in Walgreens.
Well, I'm not surprised in that one. I mean, I could have
So,
picked out some of
yeah,
the top brands for that one.
yes, I think that we just need to start paying attention to what is going on. And again, going back to, okay, that's the direction things are going. That doesn't mean that's the real one. It's going back to the foundations of how was I created? Who created me? What is his nature? How does he want to express his nature in me? How can I do that to the very best of my ability and continue to grow in that? And how can I shift my heart posture to loving it, to loving the process of the refinement?
You know
And
the
hanging out with other people who love it. I think for me, that is so important. When I hang out with other entrepreneurs who love their job, who love what they do, even in the hard times, I was talking to you one day, Justin. I was saying, like, I struggle with this coaching company for a long time. I feel like I had a love hate relationship with it for so long because I love it so much, but why is it not doing what I want it to do? How come I'm not having, these instant successes, and not instant of like poof, but like why couldn't I figure out the system? It was just this like back and forth tug of war. And this last year, I really feel like I came into like loving it more and more and really understanding my clients get what I get because it's my company. And so when I started to realize, okay, it can be natural, it can be a flow, it can be easy. When I understood that, I started to shift the way that I was doing coaching. Well, wouldn't you know, my clients had quicker results, they had better results, they had predictable results. And it's just like understanding that. And that's just one thing that I'm having this understanding on. But when I hang out with other people who are like that, who love that same thing, like they want to get better at what they do because they love it. It's not just about the bottom line or how big they can grow and expansion and scaling. It's because they love it, they truly love it. And that is always like just so motivating to me. It's like, yes, I love people's mindsets who are like that. It's so attractive. It's so refreshing. It feels like home to be around people who think that way.
It's again connections. You know,
Yeah. Hmm.
we need to reach people that are not like us,
Yeah.
but that's not where we get our real fellowship at.
Yeah.
We're on a mission right there. Doctors are around sick people all the time because
Mm,
they're
mhm.
administering, something to them.
Really good.
But that's not where they're going to congregate.
Mhm.
Jesus sat down and he ate with the sinners and the publicans, and he went amongst them in the cities. But at night, he came back over here with his disciples. And so our inner circle is so important of who we are feeding around, because we feed off of each other,
Yes.
and iron sharpens iron, and rocks break rocks. So, it
Yeah.
just it depends on if you're going to be around iron or around a rock. So, when we understand this importance of the connections, we can get around people that are building us up, they're inspiring us, motivating us, encouraging us, not because they're sitting down with us and saying, Angel, I want to pump you up. It's not about that. It's about them just doing them.
Yeah.
And it's so inspirational that it inspires us to do better. It inspires us to do more. When you see somebody that's on fire for God, I believe it was John Wesley said, I set myself on fire and I let people come and watch me burn. And
Yes.
when you see somebody truly just impassioned with their love for God, not religion, not some formality of thing, but they are truly just in love with God, then it inspires you, and it actually sparks the hunger inside of you, and you begin to hunger for more because they've got more, and it's not a competitive thing or a jealousy thing. It's just they just excite that out of you. And on the adverse side of that, you can get around somebody who's cold and dead, and the more you're around them, the more you're going to feel that coldness get on you. And so we have to guard who we allow into the proximity around us, into that inner circle, where we draw from people with strength. And it is very important who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, that's so good, Justin. I like everything that you just mentioned here. Like doctors will be around sick people all day doing their craft, but that's not where they go to learn to be a doctor. They go with other doctors. They congregate with people who are gonna match what is who they are, and what is that the where's this place that they want to do? How is the way that they want to show who they are, right? They want to be around people who are resonating with them. And I think that's so good to like go back to again the the foundations of how do we set those standards, where do we get those boundaries and the connections and all of that from, even what you were saying, like here's what Jesus did, right? So going back to the beginning, I think that's just so important, getting back to the foundations and really seeing, am I applying what I say I'm believing? I did a video on my YouTube channel on Monday, I released it, talking about ways to identify what you actually believe. Because if you keep doing the same thing and you're saying you believe it, that's not necessary. What your result is what you believe, not what you say.
Mhm.
Because the word says that, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Not what he thinks in his head, not what he says with his mouth. It's what is in your heart is what you're actually believing. And you're going to see what you actually believe by the cycles or patterns that you're repeating. If you're able to have success every time that you put your hand to something, that's because there's a belief there. If you're getting destruction, it's because there's a belief there.
Absolutely. And what comes out of somebody's mouth is really not that telling of what's really in their heart, because you can say anything. You can have somebody come up to you and say, "Oh, I love you so much," and they reach out to hug you, but they've got a knife in their hand and they're hugging you just to get access to your back. It's not about the words out of their mouth. It's truly about their actions, and people's motives will be revealed. And I think right now we're in this time that God is exposing so much,
Yeah.
that we're seeing people's hearts exposed. We're seeing ministries exposed. And I don't say that with a glad heart at all, because there is a trail of victims when a ministry is exposed, and it breaks my heart. But we're seeing, I would say we're seeing politicians exposed, but quite frankly, and I prophesied that they would get up from the microphones and begin to confess things, and they're
Yeah.
confessing them, but nobody cares. Everybody's just like, there is a intoxication, a delusion that is over people right now, and a politician can get up and just confess to whatever they want, and the people are like, okay, like it
It's like
just,
this numbing
yes.
is like going on right now. Yeah.
It's like
And
you said a while ago. It's been this preparation,
yeah,
this systematic preparation.
I think it's been on purpose. I think it was strategic the whole time and continues to be that way. And I do think all of these things are connected. I think there's a reason our tap water is poisonous. I think there's a reason why we're having shortage at the grocery stores, that you have to take drugs and you're never taught how to heal your own body. You're never taught. Listen, starfish, we know starfish grow back their own limbs, and we're like, wow, look at these starfish, amazing, they grow back their own limbs. And yet we're the pinnacle of creation, and we're like, only available for starfish. It's wild when we have forgotten who we are and how we've been created. That's why I say just go back to the foundation and pay attention to the things they don't want you talking about, because there's probably some secrets in there that you should know.
Well, I will say this: I've prayed about it, and God has not unlocked the key for me to figure out how to grow taller.
Yeah.
Um, so, if you figure out that secret, just shoot me a phone call. Let me know, because I'd like to know that one.
Yeah. Well, you and me both.
That's
Jokingly, I've said God has not made any mistakes except made me 2 inches shorter than what I was supposed to be. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, I could go for 4 for me, but I was
Okay.
listening to Kent Christmas one day, and he said, and he's, I mean, I'm 5'9", which is average height, but anyway, Kent Christmas was talking one day, and he says, I don't know why God didn't make me 6'2", 6'3", or whatever, and then he stopped. He said, I think I do know why, because God knew with my attitude, I couldn't be that big. I'd be too hard to handle. So it's like, maybe that's why God stopped me at 5'9".
That's it.
6 foot, 6'1". Maybe I would have been too cocky or too something. So I don't know.
We'll
But
ask when we get to heaven.
yeah,
Explain your reasoning here.
yeah, and then we won't care. We'll have our
Yeah,
perfected bodies, and
absolutely. Absolutely.
um, well, I think that's what I have. This has been a very good podcast with you. Uh, did you have anything you want to go on from there?
No, I just want to say I so appreciate these conversations. And you were talking earlier about iron sharpening iron, and I'm just so grateful that your family, your church family, everything that you've built has been so instrumental in my life, and I'm just so grateful for this connection and the ability to do this podcast with you every month. And hopefully it's having that impact on other people as well, as much as it's impacting me.
Likewise, I definitely appreciate this podcast, and I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate the connection that God brought. Again, it's so important to allow God to bring connections.
Yeah.
And when God does, and you identify this as God doing this, then hold to those connections. And there's always good times, there's always difficult times, but hold to both the good and the difficult, because this is when God brings connections like that. I know we have people all in our church that God strategically brought to this church, and it's just like, this is not just a church member. This was an assigned connection that God had for that person in this church and with my family, and it's so priceless. So yes, I value so much the connection and the friendship. So would you like to close us out in prayer?
I would love to, yes. God, I just thank you for today. I thank you for another month, another year of experiencing you. I thank you that although there is a lot of confusion and a lot of noise, that you are still the constant sound, that you haven't changed, that you've given us everything that we need for life and godliness. And all we need to do is to go back to the simplicity of the foundation of our relationship and connection with you, that in you we still live and move and have our being. And Lord, I just ask that as people go about their day today and the rest of the week and the rest of this month, they would experience you on that deeper level, that foundational knowing of who you are and who you are to them specific, that it would not be generalities that they would be thinking in or experiencing you in, but it would be deep and personal, and it would allow their roots in you to grow even deeper so that they might have fruit in all seasons, in and out of season. God, I just thank you so much for the Akers family, for the Upper Room Church Ministries family, and for the things that you're doing in and through them this year. I feel so strongly it's a year of deep expansion. And I thank you that that's because their roots are deep, God, that you have expanded their roots over many years and generations, many seasons of that deep, searching for where is the deep water? Where are those secret places that you've put water that they have pushed through to find? And that they are truly developing this tree of life that everybody can come and have solace and experience your presence in. So, Lord, I just thank you for what you're doing in them. I bless that. I thank you for the protection that you're putting around it. And as people go about our days, even myself and Justin, that you would show us more and teach us more on the spirit of excellence, the way that you want to show yourself through how we do our normal life in excellence. Give us more opportunities to see your hand at work in that way, Lord. And I just thank you for every person who's listening to this podcast. May these words be seeds that are sown into their hearts that bear lots of fruit, lots of harvest for them and for their families. And I just ask that you would show them ways in which their environments are actually working towards them, that those frustrations that they're facing are not on accident and are not for nothing, that you would show them the ways to use that. We love you, Jesus, and I just pray this in your mighty, powerful, and holy name. Amen.
Amen. Well, Angel, thank you so much. And we'll be back, I guess, at the end of this month for another Vaulting Voices podcast. And you can look up in the description and see Angel's sites and social media links, and as well mine and the churches. And thank you so much for tuning in to this podcast. You pray that it's been a blessing to you. It has been to me. And we will see you next time.